questions from the folks that are watching, and I'll go to the ones that are good, and then we'll ask Brother Clarence and Brother Robert when that time comes.
Not a problem with the podcast or something.
Let me get it ready here. All right, so we have a very good, important, and necessary conversation today as we close out Black History Month. We want to talk about some things, especially now with this massive attack on labor. We want to invite everybody watching and everybody that's on this Zoom here into a much needed conversation on how we can push back and fight back like our ancestors were forced to because they saw a lot of uh, you know injustice amongst Black people, and now we're facing that same injustice in the working class. And so we have two folks here that are going to take us through some things that we can do together to fight back against President Elon Musk and his sidekick, Donald Trump.
That's it.
If you think Donald Trump is the one pulling the strings, you're fooling yourself. This is all Musk. You're talking about a person who cares nothing about working class people. He has raided the working class. He cares nothing. And he has the perfect president to do that. Donald Trump has a history of anti-labor, anti-worker, anti-Black. And so now we're going to have a presentation here by the one and only Clarence Thomas, as Brother Chris likes to always say, not the judge. And so I'm going to read his bio. So Clarence Thomas is a third generation member of the International Longshore and Warehouse Union, ILWU, Local 10. In San Francisco, a past secretary treasurer and executive board member of his local. He has led or been a part of many rank and file struggles and solidarity actions. At the point of production, he is considered by many as a leading radical African-American trade unionist. Thomas's activism started in the late 1960s as a member of the Black Student Union at San Francisco State College and as a member of the Black Panther Party in Oakland, California. During his college days at San Francisco State, he was part of the leadership of the longest student strike in American history, which resulted in an establishment of the first Black Studies Department and School of Ethnic Studies in the U.S., and they both still exist today. A labor and community activist, Thomas has championed the struggles of African Americans, the oppressed, and the working class at home and abroad. In October 2003, Thomas was part of an international labor delegation to meet with Iraqi trade unionists in Baghdad. Other travels included meeting with workers from around the world as rank and file leader of ILWU Local 10. This included meeting with dot workers and others in Bangladesh, Brazil, Canada, Cuba, France, Japan, and Spain. Clarence organized and led such courageous and rank and file actions such as the Million Worker March in 2004, calling for workers to break away from the Democratic and Republican parties and organize independently, mobilizing and organizing in their own name. 2008, shutting down all 29 West Coast ports on May Day to oppose wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. 2010, shutting down 5 Bay Area ports for justice for Oscar Grant and jail for killer cops. 2011, on the 43rd anniversary of the assassination of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., shutting down Bay Area ports for 24 hours as a day of solidarity with Wisconsin workers. Also in 2011, shutting down docks on December 12th in solidarity with West Coast Occupy Wall Street. 2014, a 4-day block the boat, a Palestinian solidarity action. May Day 2015, port shutdown action for resisting police terror. May Day 2016, rally and port shutdown in support of Black Lives Matter and the minimum wage demand of $15 per hour. And the Juneteenth 2020 mobilization demanding an end to police terror and systematic racism and privatization of the Howard Terminal at the Port of Oakland. Clarence is the co-founder of Declare Publishing and has published, authored, or edited several books, including Mobilizing in Our Own Name, Million Worker March, Cleophas Williams, My Life Story, in the International Longshore and Warehouse Union, Local 10, in 1934, The Year of Good Trouble. In this book, Teamster Chris Silvera speaks on the history of class warfare. For more information, visit the website millionworkermarch.com. Brother Clarence Thomas, the floor is yours. And thank you again for joining this much needed discussion today.
Solidarity greetings, sisters, brothers, friends, and enemies.
Yeah.
In fact, we know that we would be foolish to think that there are not some enemies present on this podcast. First of all, I would like to thank you, Brother Chris Silvera, for making me a part of this important discussion today. I've had a number of opportunities to be a part of Teamster events starting in 2004 with the Teamster National Black Caucus in Orlando, Florida, I believe. And I've attended women's conferences, and I feel very much at home meeting people like you, Chris, of course, people like Sister Jackie Spears, and many, many others that I cannot think of right now. Robert Turner, for an example. And so many of your members that have made me feel very much a part of the international solidarity of one of the most strongest unions in the world, the International Brotherhood of Teamsters. The International Brotherhood of Teamsters, the International Longshore and Warehouse Union, of which I am a member, and the International Longshore Association are some of the most powerful industrial workers in the United States of America, if not the world. I can recall Jimmy Hoffa Jr. talking about Harry Bridges, the founder of our union, and James Hoffa Sr. being in their living room discussing trucking and shipping and how important both industries are to the working class. The subject of my presentation today, sisters and brothers, will be occurring at no better time than right now. Not because it's Black History Month alone, but also because of the current presidency of Donald J. Trump, a reckless, avaricious billionaire known for making racist comments, failing to pay his workers, outsourcing manufacturing firms, and in case anyone has forgotten, is currently presiding over an unprecedented effort to exercise authoritarian rule over all branches of the US government. There has been a long history in this country of trade union and white working class intransigence against Black working class advancement, alongside of episodes of interracial class unity and the elusive promise of a radical future and a Labor Party. Racism has genuinely undermined working class democracy and power in favor of the meager protections of white privilege, from the placement of occupational color bars by unions to the outbreak of wildcat strikes against the hiring of Black workers. History is scattered with episodes of anti-racism and interracial unity, from the Knights of Labor and the International Workers of the World, otherwise known as the IWW, to the Congress of Industrial Organizations, from the League of Black Revolutionary Workers to the Coalition of Black Trade Unionists, otherwise known as CBTU. Black labor militants appealed to white and other workers of color for solidarity. More recently, in 2004, we witnessed the emergence of the Million Worker March movement, initiated by African American trade unionists, which assembled at the Lincoln Memorial on October 17, 2004, calling for all workers to break with the two ruling class parties and embrace a workers' agenda. Slavery was capitalism on steroids. I'll repeat. Slavery was capitalism on steroids. Capitalism and racism go together like hand in glove. We have nothing better to illustrate that than the history of slavery in this country. Dr. King once said that, and I'm paraphrasing, but it is a misnomer to think that the foundation of wealth in this country was built on meritocracy. It's built on slavery. The ability to hold one in bondage so that the descendants of the enslaved mother, the child, would be looking to a future of indefinite bondage. No rights, no ability to own property, just, I guess you could say, one of the most dismal legacy of human history. And we need to be very clear, because some whites are so quick to say, well, there was slavery practiced in Africa. That is true, but it was not chattel slavery, where one would be treated not as a human being, but as property. And it was so easy for Europeans to employ African Americans in the colonies as enslaved Africans, because unlike the Native Americans, who could not be enslaved because they could leave and they knew the terrain and they were able to avoid being captured. As far as white indentured servitude was concerned, land was so cheap that they could buy it once they earned enough money. But the enslaved Africans, because their skin was black, and because the ideology of white supremacy, which used such typical excuses like Black men and women are the descendants of Ham, and that we are destined to be slaves, and that slavery is actually an improvement over the lives that we had in Africa. All of these lies served as the foundation for the Black man and woman being the other from the dark continent. Okay? The number of Black enslaved people grew slowly in the 17th century. There were probably some 25,000 in the colonial Americas. And slavery was much more suited to plantation agriculture in the Southern economy. Slave labor could be maintained at a subsistence standard of living, and the offspring of Black women added to the profit of the masters. Many of the Africans carried to the Americas slaves were brought here with various kinds of skill sets in metallurgy, woodworking, leather, cultivation of rice, and indigo. One of the things that Chris Silvera and I have discussed on many occasions had to do with the reaction of the white workers during the period of African American enslavement, when their wages were held down because of slavery. Instead of the white worker turning their animosity and class against the slave owner, no, they turned it against the enslaved African himself. This is how we can see the formation of white resentment towards Black labor advancement. It started during the period of enslavement. And one of the things that we cannot forget is the fact that in the Americas, specifically the United States, what we saw was the emergence of whiteness. I repeat, the emergence of whiteness. At one point, white people were differentiated by where they came from. The Dutch, Holland, France, Germany, Italy. But when they came to the United States of America during the period of enslavement, they were no longer those nationalities. They were white. To juxtapose the Blackness of the enslaved Africans. One of the things that we need to be very aware of is that in every attempt during the 17th and 18th century, 19th century, when African Americans attempted to join white unions, they were met with terrible resistance. And why was that? It goes right back to the whole question of what the great sociologist and revolutionary W.E.B. Du Bois said. The greatest issue of the 20th century, it could also be the 21st century, 19th, 18th, and 17th century, is that of the color line. We as trade unionists must be very clear about this. There's so much material that I want to cover. I'm going to do some broad strokes. One of the things that I would like to talk about now is the Colored National Labor Union, which was an organization formulated by African American workers in 21 states for the purpose of the advancement of the African American laborer. We can understand from a historical analysis how such organizations as the Teamster National Black Caucus, Coalition of Black Trade Unionists, the League of Revolutionary Black Workers, all emanate from African Americans who want to be a part of the labor movement and recognizing the barriers to their advancement and the barriers to interracial rank and file solidarity. We need to be very clear that the ruling class has always understood that one of their greatest fears and enemies was to see poor whites, the indigenous people, enslaved Africans, all joining up together against the bosses.
Yep.
I'd like to point out something that a lot of us are unfamiliar with, and that has to do with W.E.B. Du Bois's book, Black Reconstruction, where he gives a class analysis linking enslaved Africans and the white working class. For example, he was the first person to say that enslaved African Americans had something to do with their own freedom. Well, Brother Clarence, what do you mean by that? Well, during enslavement and the Civil War, African Americans left the plantation. In some instances, they went to Union Army encampments. And in some instances, the Union Army sent them back to the plantation. But you also witness insurrections. But this is one of the most significant things that I learned. Enslaved Africans sabotaged and disrupted the global cotton economy. Do I need to repeat that again?
Go ahead.
Disrupted the global economy. We were actors other than just fighting in the army.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? This is what he describes as the African American enslaved proletariat of the working class. I'm going to get into this in a little bit more detail later. I'm going in broad strokes now. Moving in broad strokes. I want to talk about now the first African American union that was sanctioned or recognized by the American Federation of Labor. Listen to me very carefully. This was in 1925. The man who was the founder and president, A. Philip Randolph, that a lot of our people don't know, was an avowed socialist. He was a radical. And that shouldn't be of surprise to any of us. Not at all. Because when we look at our own history, you made reference to my latest book, where Brother Chris Silvera speaks about 1934, where there was the longshore strike on the West Coast. There was the Minneapolis Teamsters strike in the Midwest, and the Toledo strike of auto workers, all in 1934. And all of those struggles were led by radicals, because they were the ones who didn't go for the okie doke and believe in company unions. They believed in class struggle, and they also believed in rank and file unity. Something that a lot of people may not be aware of is that the Pullman Car Company was one of the most prominent in terms of hiring African Americans. I repeat, very prominent. You know what else they used to do? They used to give money to the black churches, black newspapers, and other institutions to have a veneer of liberalism. But back in the day, the brothers worked 73 hours a week for 27.8 cents an hour. But they were some of the most brightest and intelligent of our workforce because they could not get a job working for General Electric or for Tesla or for Amazon as executives. No, because they weren't hiring black people. So you had college graduates from Howard to Tuskegee and other institutions that went to work as Pullman porters. As a matter of fact, that was the black backbone of the black working middle class. I use the term middle class in this respect, as far as their wages, as it relates to the black community. Okay? They were able to buy homes. And another thing that,
Brother Thomas, can I ask you a quick question while we're on middle class and working class?
I'm going to talk about this more. Go ahead.
Can you explain the difference to our viewers? What's the difference between middle class and working class? Because sometimes people get those confused.
Let me attempt to break it down.
Okay.
Like one of my teachers, Leo Robinson, and when I was in the Black Panther Party, it was a guy by the name of Bobby Seale, who was the chairman of the party. He always said we had to break it down so that people in the community can understand it.
Right.
In capitalist America, there's an effort to divide the class by the amount of money you make, your occupation, and your education. Let me take, for example, my own industry. I'm a retired longshore worker. A longshore worker, by capitalist definition, especially one who is skilled or puts in a lot of overtime hours, is a part of the 9.2% of Americans with an income exceeding $100,000. Depending on one's skill level, their job classification, and their accumulated overtime hours, they can well exceed $100,000. Perhaps that would explain why you can find lawyers, accountants, teachers, and other highly educated people working on the waterfront. Did you hear what I said?
Mm-hmm.
Teachers, lawyers, accountants, engineers. I even knew a foot doctor, a podiatrist, who worked on the waterfront, despite their credentials. And the reason for that is because longshore workers are global to the global economy. My point is this: if you are a wage earner, you are definitely working class, no matter how much money you make. You can make $300,000, $400,000, $500,000. But if you're a wage earner, all we have to do is to look to see when you get laid off or when there's a labor dispute and you got to walk the picket line.
Yep.
Let me call the viewers' attention to what we witnessed about a year or less ago. When people in Hollywood and the entertainment industry went on strike, and you had some of the leading actors and actresses on the picket line as well, supporting workers who make far less than them. They didn't cross that picket line. We need to be very careful in America. If you really want to talk about who the real legitimate middle class is, if you really want to be truthful, you know who that is? That's your doctors, your architects, your successful small business people, what in Marxist terms they call the petty bourgeoisie. But if you are a wage earner, you're a worker. Even football players got a union, and they go on strike. You see how much money they make. All of them don't make the same money, though. Everybody doesn't get the big money of a Mahomes or Dak Prescott. You got a lot of brothers who, most of them are on the lower scale. They're way well paid, but look at what they got to do to make that money. It also is a way of dividing blacks and whites. For an example, on the waterfront, you got some people who operate a crane. You got some people that operate a computer. You got some people who plan how to load a ship. We have to remember this. Because of racism and white supremacy, there are disparities in education, occupations, wealth, and that pertains to the whole definition of middle class. So what I would say, a lot of people are called middle class because of the money that they make when they wage earners. But let their asses get laid off or have to go on strike. What happens then?
Yeah.
If you don't have a bunch of money invested, own some houses or some buildings, that wealth can be eaten up. Did I answer your question, brother?
Yes, sir.
Oh,
Absolutely.
Okay. I hope I did. That's a very important question, brother. And we need to talk about that much more. I'm always reminding our members, well, I'm retired now, black members and white members. I don't care if you live in a gated community, got your kids in a private school, your wife takes cruises and goes to Europe and all that other good stuff. You got to put on your overalls and go to work to make that money down here on this waterfront. And if we don't understand that, then we're going to lose what we have. I'm going to fast forward. I know we got other people to talk. I'm going to fast forward now to really illustrate the importance of working class solidarity and black working class leadership. A number of people in this country don't know that the March on Washington didn't start in 1963. It started in 1941, and it was led by A. Philip Randolph. He wanted to bring 10,000, we were called Negroes in those days, to Washington, D.C., against the wishes of Franklin Delano Roosevelt. He wanted to bring black people to Washington, D.C. to make the point that we're tired of black people not being able to get these jobs in the civil defense plants during the war. And also to end the discrimination in the military. A deal was cut between A. Philip Randolph and FDR, much to the chagrin of radical black revolutionaries like William Bill Patterson, who was a black man and a lawyer who was a communist and also played a very important role in building international support for the Scottsboro Nine, otherwise known as the Scottsboro Boys case. Okay. Franklin Delano Roosevelt decided that he was going to establish a Fair Employment Practices Commission, an executive order, which we see Donald Trump doing almost daily. Can you still hear me?
Yes, sir.
Very good. Okay. The march was called off, and this commission was set up. Okay. Some 6 years later, they were going to mobilize again in Washington, D.C. This time around, the issue of ending discrimination in the military primarily. Once again, President Truman decided that he was going to integrate the military, and the march was called off. It was not until August 1963 that march actually took place. It was not led and it was not organized by Dr. King. Once again, the lead on that was Black labor, A. Philip Randolph, with the assistance of Bayard Rustin, and of course, Dr. King and the civil rights organizations participated. But the ones who were in the forefront of that was labor. Let's fast forward to January 2004, when there was another march on Washington, once again, led by radical trade unionists. And I can name them. People like Leo Robinson, ILWU Local 10, who wrote the resolution calling for the boycott of South African cargo. Chris Silvera, longest serving principal officer of the International Brotherhood of Teamsters. Trent Willis, ILW Local 10, third generation longshore worker who came up with the idea of the Million Worker March. Sister Brenda Stokely, out of Local 1707, AFSCME. Right now, you're seeing historic photographs. Brother Chris Silvera and I holding the Mayday sign with his son, who was just 5 or 6 years old, Bashiri. Here we are. We called for a Million Worker March. Why did we call for one? Because if you remember, the Democrats were running John Kerry and John Edwards. Most people then forgot who was running who the Democrats were supporting back in those days. 2004. Both of those guys were corporate candidates. The Million Worker March was calling, listen very carefully, they were calling for protecting Social Security, stop the dismantling of public education, end corporate greed, end the war in Iraq and Afghanistan, repeal Taft-Hartley, the right for workers to organize, enforce all civil rights, amnesty for all undocumented Americans, on and on. This was a broad, progressive agenda. And you know what the AFL-CIO told us? We're not, while we may agree with a lot of the demands of the Million Worker March, we're not supporting that because we are supporting defeating George Bush. They tried all they possibly could to undermine and stop us. Let me tell you what happened. Even our own union, the International Longshore and Warehouse Union, people need to know, on the weekend before the 2004 Democratic Convention, listen to me carefully, James Hoffa Jr., James Spinoza, international president of the ILWU, Andy Stern, the head of the AFL-CIO, and others all met at the Kennedy compound. And they discussed labor, but they also discussed the Million Worker March. And they said it was the wrong time. That's what they said. And I can prove it. Letters were sent to the Teamsters and other unions saying, don't support the Million Worker March. But let me tell you about a historic action that took place. During the Teamster National Black Caucus in Orlando, Florida, the International Secretary of the Teamsters was present. C. Thomas Kegel, I believe is his name. There was a resolution that was put forward by the TNBC delegates calling for the TNBC to contribute $10,000 to the Million Worker March. Even though the Teamsters were told not to give that money by the AFL-CIO. I got a phone call the day after the march. Mr. Clarence Thomas? I said, yes. This is the International Brotherhood of Teamsters. Where can we send the 10,000? Yes, they sent that money. But you want to know what else was significant that took place? Following the Million Worker March, the International Brotherhood of Teamsters International President James Hoffa sent a letter. There it is. Supporting the Million Worker March as it celebrated the 10th anniversary of the Million Man March. He outlined specifically the issues, very straightforward. When we look at this letter today, yes, it does look radical compared to what we're seeing now from international trade unionists. I needn't go into the details because you're all too familiar.
Yeah.
There it is right there in black and white. Brother, he also donated, I shouldn't say he, the Teamsters also donated another $10,000. That money went to organizing and mobilizing. One of the most important speeches that was given on the 10th anniversary of the Million Man March, in my opinion, is when Brother Chris Silvera spoke. We need to be very clear about something. Chris represents Local 808 Teamsters in Long Island City. But on that day of the 10th anniversary of the Million Man March, he was speaking for all 10,000, all 400,000 Teamsters. And Chris talked about a law. It's called Davis-Bacon. Davis-Bacon pertains to a law that was passed, I believe, in the 30s. Any public works project that is funded by the federal government, the contractors must pay prevailing wages, union wages. In the case of George Bush and the rebuilding of New Orleans, he set Davis-Bacon aside. Brother Chris Silvera, he called for labor, along with Minister Farrakhan, the Nation of Islam, and community organizations to all come together and have a blockade. Do you know about a week or two later, George Bush rescinded that? Now, one could say, and it would be true, that the Democratic Party had been working to do this, but to deny the role of Black labor's voice, speaking in Washington, D.C., you would have to be one not to recognize and appreciate your own history. I'm going to wrap it up right now. I know you got an important speaker. I want to thank you for allowing me. I used to always say, and it's true today, I got a 30-minute speech and only 10 minutes to give it. I've said enough. I want to thank you, brother. I hope I've been able to give a Black perspective on history. I hope that it's been something that the workers can identify with, can understand. And I'm going to close out with this one. I can't forget to tell you this, but in my city where I grew up, Oakland, California, just this past Friday, the minority speaker of the House, Representative Hakeem Jeffries, was doing a book tour. And he spoke at the Kaiser Center. When I was growing up, it was called the Oakland Auditorium. It was the biggest arena we had. There must have been almost 1,000 people out there protesting, saying, why are you on a book tour when you should be stopping the coup that's taking place in Washington, D.C.? And I pointed this out when I spoke. You know, many people of our generation, Brother Hooker and others, we send our children to college, graduate school, and law school. But one of the things that I speak about and criticize is when our children grow up and they decide that they go to law school, and when they come out of law school, they want to work being a corporate lawyer, being an anti-union lawyer. That's the case of Hakeem Jeffries, graduate of NYU Law School. He worked as a corporate lawyer. So that should tell us where his allegiances lie. This is not personal. This is politics. But there were nearly 1,000 people outside cheering, chanting, a cross-generational groups, talking about shutting it down, talking about the Democrats stop complaining about progressives putting pressure on them and do something, use procedural maneuvers to stop the coup instead of saying there's nothing we can do. Thank you so much, Brother Hooker and others, for allowing me to be with you today. That's the conclusion of my remarks.
Brother, thank you so much. And I also have up on the screen now your book, Mobilizing in Our Own Name. You guys should make sure that you go and get this book, please. I have it upstairs, and I read it every chance I get. We have the website up here. If you guys want to jot that down, but make sure that you get these books that we were talking about here today. Appreciate you, brother. Thank you.
A lot of Teamster history is in that book.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Chris, you want to say anything real quick?
So with many work of March, so the first year we did 2004, October 17th, and we eventually got $10,000. The following year was millions more, and we were doing a program inside of millions more, and we got another $10,000 from the international, and we handed them a video so they could see how their money was spent. You understand what I'm saying? We didn't just take the money and ran into a closet. Right. They actually ended up with a video of the events that day, and I have to thank Local 639, Brother Tommy Ratcliffe, who allowed us to have a whole series of events at his hall that day. And we recorded this, and the results were sent to the international. So they have evidence that their money was well spent. But TNBC was a different type of organization, and we need to, in this time, we need to be mobilizing because the coup is going to be stopped by the working class.
Yeah.
Coup is not going to be stopped by the Democratic Party. As a matter of fact, I think the junior partners in the coup myself. But the coup will be stopped by the working class because it will be the working class that suffers.
Brother Clarence, thank you so much. So now we're going to keep it moving to our next guest, Vice President Robert Gonzalez of the AFGE Federal Government Union. Everybody is seeing what President Musk. Go ahead, Chris.
I just want to say it's the American Federation of Government Employees.
Right. Got you. Thank you. Let me go down here to the bio here so I can make sure I read this right. But everybody is seeing what's going on under Musk and Trump. I mean, these guys didn't waste any time. And they had a plan from the very beginning. They did. If you look at November 4th, Donald Trump wins the White House. 2 weeks later, Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos filed charges against the NLRB, saying it's unconstitutional. On January 20th, these guys are all up on stage in the inauguration. Trump, Musk, and Jeff Bezos on January 20th. A week later, he fires Sister Gwen Wilcox and other folks from the NLRB. And he also fires 2 EEOC commissioners from that organization. These guys had a plan from the very beginning. And we as labor, we must also have a plan to fight back. And one of the unions that are in the crosshairs right now are the AFGE union. And we have Vice President Robert Gonzalez, and I'm thankful for this brother to give us a first person view of what's going on with this fight. So let me read uh, the brother's bio here real quick. So we have National Vice President of the AFGE Union, David Gonzalez. He's the District 2 National Vice President for the American Federation of Government Employees, representing federal employees in New Jersey, New York, Connecticut, Maine, Vermont, Massachusetts, New Hampshire, and Rhode Island. He was elected to the position in October of 2020. A Navy veteran, Gonzalez joined the Bureau of Prisons in May of 1991 and immediately became a member of the AFGE Local 3975, where he eventually served as shop steward, vice president, and then president. So, brother, I hope I'm not missing anything. If you want to add anything to it, please be our guest. But it is a pleasure to have you on this program with us today because, again, you guys are on the front line. You guys are marching in the streets. You guys are making noise. Something that I wish our organization was doing, but that's a story for another day. So, brother, take it away for us.
First of all, I want to thank you and your organization, the Teamsters, for inviting us and to hear our plight. Yeah, we're on the front lines and we're out in these streets. And we're going to stay out in these streets until these attacks cease on the federal workforce, and not just the federal workforce, but the working people all over. Working people are under attack,
Yeah.
and it's a shame. And when we have to unite together as one party, one organization, and fight for the working class people, especially our people.
Yeah.
So I come out of the trade unions as well. When I got out of the Navy, I worked in the international union for a little stint before I went back into government. After I got out of the Navy, I went back into government, and then the rest goes from there. But it's true that AFGE is under attack. AFGE is the biggest federal union, and we represent 800,000 federal workers across the United States and Europe. And we represent USAID, the Department of Education, the EPA,
Wow.
70 other agencies, the VA, DOD, TSA, the BOP, where I come from, Marshals, Border Patrol, you name it. All the federal workforce falls under us, with the exception of the post office and a couple other. Our union and our workers are in the fight for our existence right now. Donald Trump attacked us his first time around. When he got elected the first time around, he tried to take away collective bargaining rights from us.
Right.
He took away official time, the time that's needed to represent our workers and our members. He tried to take away the space that was allotted to us contractually inside facilities to have office space to meet with our members when they have issues and things of that nature. So we were aware of what Donald Trump could do if he was elected again. We want to ask you and other leaders of labor and the House leaders to do everything in your power to help us right now, because we're in a fight for our existence. The federal workforce is. Please speak out as loud as you can about what Musk and Trump are doing to destroy the federal government and the workforce. We've never seen anything like this before. Schedule F. He He tried to institute this first time around. It didn't get off the floor because of COVID, but Schedule F, this action will transform the professional civil service into an army of political appointees loyal to only one person, and that's Donald Trump, and not their mission. It dismantles the merit-based civil service, jeopardizing professionalism and impartiality in government. They are intimidating workers and accepting their crooked and corrupt resignation offers. As many know, this has been public. They sent out a mass asking people to resign in the federal workforce in droves, and we were in the courts with this illegal action. We can expect worse to come from Trump. He showed yesterday that he will pay no attention to collective bargaining agreements, even some that were enforced during his first term. We expect he'll follow the Project 2025 playbook and try to end collective bargaining and bust the union, not just our unions, but unions in general, completely in the name of fake national security. Congressional Republicans will go after federal pay and benefits when they start reconciliation and decide how to fund the government when when the continuing resolution expires March 14th. Just a couple of days ago, the House Senate passed the budget resolution for fiscal year 2025, which did just that, which came after the federal the benefits and retirement of the federal workforce. So they're already in motion with their plan. Please use whatever leverage that you have on the budget and the debt ceiling to save the civil service. Without a functioning government agencies, there will be no way for the Democrats to undo the damage in 2 years or 4 years, because all the damage will be done and will be just too far gone.
Right.
We ask that you and labor as a whole and the Democratic caucus have our backs. First of all, can you please speak out and tell all federal workers not to quit? If you know a federal worker, you tell them to hold the line and not to quit. We've done what we can, but our members are only 15% of the workforce. There are managers, there are executives, there are law enforcement officers we don't represent. But please help us reach everyone. Services will collapse if this is not stopped in its tracks. Departures will only lead to more departures. More workers will be piled onto more work will be piled onto less people, which is already a common theme throughout government. Government has been understaffed for the longest. If you look at the SSA and the VA and all the plights that that they put out, and even during the Biden administration, these agencies, the VA and the SSA and the Bureau of Prisons and other agencies have been short-staffed for years now, and this only makes it worse. This is going to affect the public in every congressional district. It's food safety, it's Social Security payments, it's the VA benefits, the care for our veterans returning home from war, the safety of the flying public with TSA. Here's how you can help us. Please use mass media, social media to explain the work of the federal workers do for constituents. We can help you identify powerful stories in your districts that show the critical work that federal workers do in the communities. Please caution federal workers not to resign. The American people are counting on them. We need to speak up for this federal workforce in in hearings, and whenever you have the opportunity to speak up at these high level forums, please consider submitting amicus briefs in support of lawsuits that AFG is filing against the Trump administration to challenge their unjust and unfair treatment of the federal workforce. And please don't make bad deals with Republicans that hurt the federal workforce when the current continuing resolutions. We need to get out, also get a message out to those Republicans to stop hiding their hand in kowtowing to Donald Trump and Elon Musk and all those billionaires and millionaires that he entrusts his loyalty to, and not the working class people or the American people. Some of the things that he did a return to work directive. Everybody knows that uh that telework isn't new. Over half the employees never worked remotely during the pandemic. One of the things when the pandemic came, that a lot of the workforce went remote, and the government was okay with it, was okay with it, was okay with it then. Pardon. Pardon me, I forgot to mute my phone. Smart telework enhances productivity, recruitment, retention, and rolling it back disrupts operation and progress in the government. The hiring freezes that was put in place. The federal workforce hasn't grown since the 1970s, while the U.S. population has skyrocketed. Freezing hiring worsens the workforce and shortens the skill gaps, undermining vital services in government. The hiring freeze does not on its face abrogate CBAs. However, agencies' implementations must align with negotiated agreements. If violations occurs, unions should escalate to their national, ensuring compliance and filing grievances as necessary.
Brother Gonzalez, I want you to emphasize, I heard you say something that blew my mind a while ago. You said there's been a hiring freeze.
Yes.
A cap on the amount of federal workers since the 70s.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. The federal government hasn't really grown since the 1970s. You know, back when Bill Clinton did what Trump and Elon Musk is trying to do here, but they did it in a different way.
Right.
But the way Trump and Elon Musk is trying to dismantle the government, this is with no regard or no plan or no preemptive planning into looking into the government and the functions of government and what is needed for the government to work. And this is the difference of what is going on now.
All right. One of the things I would like you to talk about is how these various USAID, one of the things they attack a lot, talking about is $50 million for condoms. And give us a sense of what do federal workers, how do they touch our lives? You know, sometimes we don't realize what's going on. How do these workers touch our lives? What are the implications of these, some of the lies that's being told and misinformation and disinformation? Tell us how these workers touch our lives.
Okay, there's a lot of misinformation that you will see about the federal workforce. You know, they try to say that the federal workforce is lazy, but the federal workforce is what makes America work. Because when you put in as a lot of retired brothers, I think you brother, you said that you was retired as well. when you retire and you put in for your social security, it's a federal worker that's processing your claim and looking over your information. When we go through the airport and you go through TSA and we're expecting to get on an airplane and be on a safe plane, it's the TSA workers, the federal worker that's making making our trip safe. When we eat our food in the evening, when we eat our food in the evening or we go to the supermarket, it's a USDA worker, a federal worker that's inspecting that food and making sure that these companies that process our food are doing it in a safe and non-harmful manner for the American people. So uh so when so those are a lot of the ways that federal workers, not just to include the post office, when you get mail in the afternoon or in the evening, it's a federal worker that's delivering your mail and processing your mail, so it can get delivered to your home. So there's a lot of ways that the federal government uh, uh, the federal workforce is impactful to the government, to everyday Americans. If you look at the VA, for us veterans returning home and that put our life on the line, and as we served our country abroad and some in war, and we come back and we're looking for care, it's a federal worker at the VA that's taking care of our veterans and our aging veterans. So the federal workforce is important and they make America grow. When you go to these national monuments, when you go to the Empire building or the Statue of Liberty, when you go to the Statue of Liberty, it's a federal worker there that's keeping the grounds and giving you tours and things of that nature, and making sure you have a good experience while you're in that national park. So the federal workforce is broad and is out there. The federal workforce, it's federal workers that are on the border right now. When they talk about problems at the border, it's a federal workforce or a federal worker that works at that border, trying to keep that border safe.
So what you're saying essentially is, if we don't have enough folks, federal people, are inspecting our food when it goes to the supermarket, we're exposing our families to something that could be in our food. Or
Exactly.
if we don't have enough TSA people, we're exposing the airlines to be unsafe.
Exactly.
If we don't have enough people processing our social security payments for our elders, that means grandpop and granddad may not be able to keep their lights on.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. So there's a broad ways that the federal workforce, and I can go on and on with these agencies, and there's a lot of misinformation when they talked about USAID buying condoms and stuff. That was misinformation. That was not true. And Elon Musk even came back and said
Right.
something later on to the fact that it was misinformation, but he said there is going to be misinformation. So this is the difference between the Trump administration and this is not normal politics. The Trump administration wants to divide us, especially the working people. They want working people to be divided, so we won't be on one accord and we can't unite with our power and get back our government and get back it and make these politicians respect the working force.
Do you see this as Pat Code 2.0? This is Pat Code now actually on steroids. So that what Reagan did to the air traffic controllers is now being heaped on the entire system, federal system.
Absolutely, because he's trying to destroy unions. He's going to start with us. We're low-hanging fruit because we're federal workers, and he has control of the federal workforce. So he's going to start with us, and then he'll come for you. And this is the problem. This is why we need to unite as one in labor. And this affects us because there's a lot of us in the in the federal workforce. So this, like you said, this is PATCO 2.0 on steroids.
Because over the years, people have given a perception of this federal worker. One of the things that people need to know is that the federal government was one of the first place where people of African descent could get decent jobs. Coming out of Frederick Douglass's son worked in the federal government and so forth like that. And so that there's always been this disinformation around the federal workers. Too many of them, they're not doing any work, they're lazy and what have you. But it's important that you put forward the different ways in which the lies are lies and the importance of having these federal. So if you cut the workforce in half, what happens? Just if you could sketch out what that would look like.
What happens is that Donald Trump and his kind gets their wish, because now they can privatize out all of these jobs to his friends, to his billionaire friends, and they can make money off the federal government. It's no secret that Elon Musk, most of his contracts come from the Department of Defense, which belong to AFGE as well, the civilian workforce. And Elon Musk gets a lot of his contracts from the Department of Defense for his satellites and his space company that he has and things of that nature. So Elon Musk is in the pocket of the federal government. Now he's having say on what the federal government does and don't do in the federal workforce.
The AFGE is a part of the AFL-CIO.
Absolutely.
Have you, without being critical, so I want to say that first, but have you seen the type of response that you believe the response should be in support of protecting the federal workers from this chainsaw massacre that they're apparently trying to play out?
From the AFL-CIO?
Yeah.
I believe we have. I believe they have supported us and continue to support us. But we got to do our due diligence too and get our voice out there. That's why we're in the streets now. We're in the streets by the thousands all over the country. We just held a rally in New York in Federal Plaza a couple days ago. We held one in Boston, having one in Connecticut next Friday. So we're going to, in my district, we're going to be in the streets, and we're all in the streets all over the country.
Where are you going to be in Connecticut next Friday? We're
going to be at the West Haven VA in West Haven, Connecticut.
Okay, got you. What if you had to say to labor, and I'm talking about rank and file members, I'm talking about local unions, because a lot of times things are happening at the top and the bottom don't know anything. What would you want them to know? What would you want the rank and file worker to know, to understand in this moment in time? What would you want them to understand?
As I just said just a couple minutes ago, that we're low-hanging fruit for Donald Trump and his cronies right now, and Elon Musk. And so, once they're finished with us, they're coming for the rest of labor. And Donald Trump is never, for those of us who lives in New York, New Jersey, and in the Northeast, we knew Donald Trump. We knew what he did to Atlantic City. and how he bankrupted Atlantic City, and how he didn't pay contractors and things of that nature that did work for him, and he made them go to court and wait them out because his pockets were deep and their pockets were small, so they didn't have the money to keep up with him in the court of law. So we just need to stick together as one, and fight for our cause, for our working family, for the working man and woman.
No.
And it's funny that, because he targeted DEI when the plane went down in Washington D.C. Before, he didn't even console. If you looked at the press conference, he didn't even console the the families of those 67 people who were deceased on that flight.
That's right.
And right away he blamed it on racism and discrimination and things of that nature. That was his press conference, and that was terrible, for him to act like that. So, that was one of the first executive orders he did. He came in and did an executive order to do away with DEI programs and throughout the federal government, diversity, equity, and inclusion. And in the work, in the federal government, in our workforce.
So I believe, what's the average salary of a federal employee? Because I think people think that these people are reaping millions of dollars, that they don't own homes, that they don't go to the supermarket, that they don't rent apartments, that they don't drive cars, and that they are contributing to the economy. What's the average, if you looked across the board, what's the average salary of a
federal employees are not rich people. I mean, we have people who work and make minimum wage, and federal employees have been underpaid for the longest. So federal employees are not rich people. So it depends on what you do.
Right.
In the location you're at.
Like if I worked in the parks department, am I making 200,000 a year?
No.
Just
if you're a manager, you might make 200,000. Not a worker.
Right.
And the managers, because these people are, I was just watching the news about this young lady that had a master's degree and different things, and she worked I think she was in the Fish and Wildlife department. What would somebody like that earn?
It depends on what level they come
Right.
into government, the positions they apply for. So, but federal employees are not rich. Like I said, a lot of federal employees there's a lot of federal employees who make minimum wage.
Wow.
In places and things of that nature. When I came into the federal workforce, I'll use me for example. I came in making $16,000 a year.
Wow.
In 1991 in the Bureau of Prisons.
Yeah.
Wow.
As a correctional officer.
That's low. 1991, that's low. Yeah. Because I think we have to dispel.
I told you that I came from the trades. I actually made more money in the trades. I took a pay cut to go back into government.
So
go ahead.
I have a comment that I want to read from Steve Zelser here. He said, "We need a united front of all public workers with Trump, Musk, and his gangsters who want to smash the public unions. This is the agenda and program of Project 2025. We need actions." I agree with that 1,000%. We need actions.
Absolutely, we need action. Like I said, we're low-hanging fruit, and Trump has never respected labor as a whole. So, first is us, and then it comes you.
Yeah.
He already took the sister out of the National Labor Relations Board,
Board.
Mhm.
and so there goes you. There goes that shot at you, and then he switched
Exactly.
over to then he
Yeah.
switched over to us. So there's no avenue when or recourse for us as a labor to seek justice for our employees when they're disenfranchised by by these managements that harm our workers.
Mhm.
I lay dollars to donuts right now. I don't know the exact numbers. That when Reagan displaced the air traffic controllers and fired the air traffic controllers that went on strike, whatever the size of private sector unions in that year, between then and now, it shrunk by half,
Yes.
right?
Yep.
If we allow this to happen and for them to successfully destroy the federal employee, it means that half of private sector labor is what we're going to see 10 years from now.
Absolutely.
And that's why people have to be engaged in what's happening, because they're the beginning, but we're the target. They just have to clear them out of the way so they could get a good shot at us. And it's important, and workers need to understand. Stop listening. We wanted to have you guys here because we wanted workers to hear from you.
Yeah.
Not from MSNBC, not from CNN, but to hear from the affected institution what was happening to them. Where is this going? And do you see some methodology for success? Some methodology that is going to say we can push back and push back hard.
Well, I mean, being that we're controlled by Congress and the Senate, we have to make it to the midterms, and we have to put labor friendly people into those seats who's going to value labor and value what we do and what we bring to the table. So, that's one of the things. But in the meantime, they're going to try to harm us, and we have to fight back. We're going to challenge them in the courts whenever we can, and we're going to be out in the street educating the public, and hopefully that the public will understand the plight of the working man and working woman. Federal agencies have the lowest gender and racial pay gaps because of hiring decisions based on ability. And so, as it is, we're behind the eight ball on in the workforce as it is already.
So there's basically pay equity within the
Inequity.
federal workforce.
Yes. There's pay inequity in the federal workforce already.
Mm.
So just like when Trump took away these DEI programs and DEI initiatives and policies, then that's going to create an even worse gender and racial pay gap.
Mm.
So
See, these are the things
let me ask this question real quick, because you are a national vice president, right? You have a lot of area that you represent. What would be your message be to other national union leadership from your position? What would you tell them, and how they can help? I know you guys are a part of the AFL-CIO, but there's other unions within that group, and there's other unions outside of that group. What would you tell their national leadership about this plight, and how we can help and fight back with you all?
One, with your political power. You know, you have political power just like we have political power. With your political power, you know, reach out to these politicians and let them know that you stand in solidarity with the federal workforce, and that an attack on us to them is an attack on you.
Yeah.
And then
Right.
two, educate your members in your people in the private sector,
Yeah.
and let them know that you know, our cause and our fight is just, and 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 two, partner with us every chance that you get to support us, just like we would support you. If you needed, if you ever need AFGE, we're there with you, just like I know that you will be here for us.
Exactly.
So next Friday, West Haven VA Hospital. What time?
The rally starts at 9:30. It's going to run from 9:30 to 12:30. We're
Okay.
supposed to have Senator Blumenthal. That's
Right.
his district. Senator Blumenthal will be he has committed to us so far to be there that day, and so we'll be there rallying that day.
Right. Yeah, he's always there. There's one thing there's one thing, Senator Blumenthal, you could always call on him.
Yes.
Show up. Well, I'm going to do my best to get there. I think I'm good that day. We're actually moving, but I'm going to do my best to get up there that day and be there with you guys, because we lock steps out there, because we understand the implications, because we saw this in with Patco, and we know the implications that come with this destruction. And people need to understand that the federal workers are not some people floating around in the sky.
Yeah.
They're your next door neighbors. They're at
Yep.
the supermarket with you.
Yep.
They go to church with you. They
Yep.
bought a home next door to you. They bought a car from your dealership. And people need to understand this. So I want to thank you, Brother Gonzalez, for taking the time out to be here. And whatever you need, you to the brother Apollos Baker, to just reach out to us. We
Yeah.
in lockstep with you. We're going to be there for you throughout the struggle, and we're going to push back hard.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah, we're
I
not gonna let this go
appreciate you,
easy.
and thank you for having me.
Yeah. Do anybody, Yvette, anybody have a question for Brother Gonzalez that you might want to ask before he go? We don't get this opportunity to talk to, the national vice president. Does anybody, big dog, anybody have a question?
Let me look online and see if we got it. Go ahead, Yvette.
Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily say I had a question. I just want to applaud the fight, because
Yeah.
that's something we're gonna have to do, and I'm thankful that you did come on to collaborate with us, to let us know what's truly going on with you all, because like you say, it's a lot of noise in the media. So we like to know from the actual workers and actual fighters what's going on within their unit, so we can get the right information and fight how we need to fight. So I definitely appreciate you coming on, as well as Brother Thomas coming on today, because that's what we need. We got to collaborate, we got to
Yeah.
talk, we got to have these conversations so we can move as one and fight
Yeah.
together. So I appreciate you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate you guys for having me on as well. And anytime you guys need me or want to hear from me, I'm here.
I
Thank you.
appreciate that, man, because we're going to be coming back to you, because this is going to be a battle.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Absolutely.
It is. And we're in it. We're in it.
Yeah.
I know people thinking about the midterm. I just want to say we have some special elections coming up real soon, in which we are going to be able to potentially change who the majority is in the Congress. I think that's very important in the most immediate term. But this is a battle that I think is going to go in the street, and it is going to be a blow-up battle, because this is when they're finished with the AFGE, they're coming for the Teamsters, they're coming for the building trades, they're coming for the unions, because we have that history. And people, and I advise my general president to study what happened in Patco under Ronald Reagan, where private sector labor was and what happened to private sector labor after they destroyed Patco, just so you understand the need to get involved now and to use your power and your authority, your political clout, your 1.3 million Teamsters to push back and to protect the AFGE workers who are under assault today.
Thank
No
you.
doubt.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, my
All
brother.
right, brother. Thank you for coming.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
for coming. We're gonna
I
do.
had a question, but I guess I don't get my.
Oh, go ahead,
No,
Go
sister.
ahead, sis. Go ahead, mama.
I'm here. I'm here, sister. I'm here,
Hey,
sister.
raise your hand.
No, that's okay. I say, but there's some questions on Facebook, Hooker. You need to answer.
Are the
Oh,
questions for
okay.
Brother Gonzalez?
I see. It says, "Has your
Doesn't matter.
meeting called for a national meeting of all public worker unions to plan a united action?"
No, we haven't, and we haven't, called for, a public action. We did have a big rally in DC,
Right, I saw that.
a week ago, and, all the unions were present, including the Teamsters. Teamsters were there with us in solidarity as well. There was a lot of unions there. CWA, the list goes on there. I don't want to get into naming people because
Yeah,
I'll
yeah.
forget them.
Yes,
But
yes.
but yeah, no, we had a big rally. There was probably about 1,500 people there that day in solidarity, not
Oh
just
man, that's
AFGE
good.
either. There was in the AFL. We had a lot of political people there as well that spoke, including Hakeem Jeffries. So there was a lot of people that came out that day to support us.
Right. We need
Okay,
a.
I want to say, Clarence Thomas and Mr. Gonzalez, Dave Gonzalez, we really appreciate you being on. A lot of knowledge and everything for all of us. Mr. Thomas, it's good to see you as usual. And Mr. Gonzalez, I hope to see you again. You did an excellent job. Both of you guys did a beautiful job. And we
Thank you.
really
All right. Thank you.
thank you.
So, Richard, as we look at this situation that's going on here,
Mhm.
you know, now, I mean, my thing, you know, because I don't think you could look forward without looking backwards. You know what I'm saying? And unfortunately, I was on that road watching Ronald Reagan's actions and what have you. You know, Jimmy Carter with deregulation and what have you like that. In light of what happened with the NLRB, EEOC, getting rid of all these inspectors general, in light, when we look at this, what do you see? You know, what where do you think this turns? Where do you think, what's the end game? What's, what's that process? You know, what are they looking for? You know, and then how do we counteract? Not react, but counteract. Because that's going to be the discussion, because, you know, when I just look at what happened with Miss Linda Chavez de Rima, who has backtracked on right to work, and then to listen to someone that says, well, you know, states might have the right to implement right to work. I thought we were anti-right to work. I thought that we were every state that if it's right to work for less, why should we want any worker in any
Right.
state to be working for less if we are a union? See, so we have to look at this, you know?
Right. You know what, Chris? Somebody actually said it like this after they saw that whole interview. Somebody said, what if Dr. King would have said that Jim Crow is okay in certain states?
Yeah. It was the same argument. Exactly.
Same argument. Jim
Yeah.
Crow is okay in certain states. No, Jim Crow is not good in any state.
Any state, you know.
Just like right to work. It's not good in any state.
You know, and
Yeah,
so
we in trouble, man.
yeah, so
with
people
this
have to
guy.
look at the use of this word DEI or the acronym DEI. You know, they just took out a 4-star general. I hate to
Yeah.
tell you that to get a star, you actually require the Senate to approve your so if you to go from colonel to brigadier general, you have to get the approval of the Senate to get that star. To go to major general, you got to get an approval. To go to lieutenant, you got. This man has 4 stars, 40 years of service. He done bombed and killed more people of color than the law called for. And some idiot like Hegseth believes he's a DEI guy, that because he showed a film on George Floyd, that somehow he can't hold a job as chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Let me tell you something. This is how you know that they want to reward poor white, less than qualified whites, because highly qualified blacks are getting into spaces, not because of DEI, but because they used to be kept out, right? There's a reason why we had a Negro Leagues. We had a Negro Leagues because you didn't want us in your sandbox, right? And then when we got in your sandbox, then you got mad for Jackie Robinson. But they just had a piece on today about Fritz Pollard, who actually played in the NFL and actually coached. He's actually the first coach in Major League or Major Football. It might not be the NFL at the time. And Fritz Pollard, what he had to go through. So this is not something where we got there because we weren't qualified. When we were qualified, you wouldn't let us in. So they're acting like something is, we have to start to clarify this language. That's why we can't be waiting on MSNBC and CNN, because I'm telling you, when I listen to the questions on those shows and the people they bring on, they're not hearing what we heard today from Brother Gonzalez. They're not telling people that there are going to be less inspectors at a time when bird flu is now in the meat chain, right? This is going to affect our health. This is going to affect everything we do, because federal workers touch just about every aspect.
Look at the Consumer Protection Board.
There you go.
He got rid of that, and that is for the public. That makes sure that the items that we buy in the marketplace, your refrigerator, your things of that nature, when they sell you bad stuff, that you have an avenue to report these bad actors. And so he's taken away all the avenues for American people and people of color to do anything.
Yeah. All avenues of the working class to seek redress. Black workers, white workers, Latino workers, male, female, gay, lesbian, right, trans, all of them are having their avenues for redress, right? Because if you slash the workforce at Social Security, how long do you think it's going to take that check to come out?
Exactly.
And when it comes privatization, Jeff Bezos will have something going on. Hey, we can handle this. Microsoft will have something going on. We can handle this. Elon Musk, because if you look at some of the agencies that Elon Musk has hacked at first, are agencies that he is in combat with over safety of his SpaceX, safety of Tesla, racial discrimination. And there was a big racial discrimination case that he just got successfully thrown out of, I think it was EEO the other day, that they dismissed. You know what I'm saying? So this is the oligarchs against the working class. And
That's
people understand this ain't federal workers or state workers. This is the working class, regardless of income, regardless of color.
Yep.
Right? Regardless of sex and sexual orientation. This is a war of the working class against the ruling class.
But how do we get our members to see that this is a class war, right? How do we get them to understand that? Our Brother Clarence Thomas was talking about that at my membership meeting last week. One of my members actually stood up and talked about how this is a working class war, a class struggle, right? But how do we get the majority of the working class to understand that this is a war and these guys are not your friends and they've been setting us up this whole time?
For years.
So how do we get them to understand that? Because we have these conversations, we have our union meetings, we talk to them about it, right? But they still can't grasp that when they go to work, I'm a part of the working class. Just because, I may go to the same church as my boss, or I may go to the same movie theater, or we may sit down and eat at the same restaurant. We are not in the same class. They think that they're friends. But how do we get them to understand that, any given day, if they could get rid of you, they will? How do we get them to see that and understand that? Go ahead, Brother Clarence.
Yeah, I think that it starts with dialogue. The question that you asked me about the difference between middle class and working class and how is it used to divide the class was a question that one of Crystal Vera's rank and file members asked me, and it was a white member. And at the time that he asked me the question, I had done a presentation with Local 808 about the struggles of the Teamsters in 1934 and that of the longshore workers. It starts with conversation. I think the other part of it is to make people understand something about their own history. You know, when Franklin Delano Roosevelt instituted the New Deal, where we got Social Security and the Veterans Administration and so many things that we take for granted today, people in the Republican Party were calling him a communist. The reality is, Franklin Delano Roosevelt had to implement these measures because he was afraid that if he didn't, that there'd be a revolution in America.
Mm-hmm.
People need to understand, white working class in particular, and black working class people too, because you got black working class folks who think like the white working class folks, that the employers are the reason that gave them these jobs. And listen, Donald Trump is anti-union. How does that support you as a white worker? You have to ask yourself that question, because he would not support you. And the way that he's demonstrating that is not by going after the Teamsters right now. Like the brother said, he's going after the long-hanging fruit. I think that it's important for rank and filers to really be encouraged to participate in these rallies and need to be told why they should go, how they are next. They need to be reminded of their own history, which they don't know.
Mm-hmm.
They also need to understand that if they don't have these union jobs, they're not, quote, middle class.
That's
Where
right.
are they now?
Yeah.
You know, they live next to people in communities who are professional, who may be accountants or attorneys. Some of those brothers and teachers are making that kind of money and overtime and all that kind of stuff. You're not the same as them. If you lose your union job, where are you going?
That's right.
Where are you going to find another job that's going to pay you? Some of these people make $250,000. Let me just say this. With all due respect to Brother Gonzalez, you were asking the question about how much money people make. Isn't it interesting that people that in capitalist America, you employ people who are billionaires, millionaires. But if a worker makes six figures, there's something criminal about that.
About it. Right.
What's wrong with that?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's the people who drive you safely on a train or on a bus, an airplane, people who inspect your food. Listen, we have, this is also a time when we have to start calling things as they really are. Whose side are you on? If you support Donald Trump and you're in the union, don't be ashamed. That's your position. But explain to the membership how that's helping us.
That's it. That's right.
You know, we got to be very clear right now. We have to be very, very clear. I talk to people and I say, Trump is doing some unprecedented things. When he let all of these people out of jail, his quote, political prisoners,
Mm-hmm.
could you imagine if the Democrats had let out the brothers and sisters who were part of the Black liberation movement and let them all out of jail? They would, first of all, they would never do it.
Yeah, that's true.
Trump did it.
Right.
Trump did it.
Mhm.
So what that tells you is what's possible. That's negative. But people, if they support Trump and they're in the union, they need to come out and don't play. I support Trump, but you need to explain how that's going to help the local or the union.
Yeah.
That's it. You're right. Hey, Hooker, real quick. Someone put in the comment, if Trump was if Trump was anti-union, why is
You're breaking up. I have to
the
find out.
Teamster General President support?
Hold on. Let me go to it because I can't barely hear you. Let me see if I can find what you're talking about. Hold on. Let me see if I can find what you're talking about.
It's on the Facebook.
Okay. Here we go. If Trump was
They
anti-union,
said
why would the
Right.
Teamsters General President support him?
Right. And did you read that guy Marlo Russo comment?
Yeah, I see it.
Look at his comment.
Yeah.
Get down.
Yeah, but that's a good question. That's a good question. I don't
It's a
want to
really
put
good
I don't want to
question.
get our brother here, David Gonzalez, and any caught up in anything because you guys with the AFGE. I don't want,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? So
If I had
But
to
let
recuse himself so we can go on
Chris
and deal with that.
Rivera answer that.
right. So and that's a question for everybody but Brother Robert, because again, I don't want to get no beef between the unions. You know what I mean?
Right.
Especially being a national vice president, I don't want nothing to come back on you. So everybody else, I'm gonna ask that question to you guys. If Trump was anti-union,
Brothers,
why
I
would the
got to
Teamsters?
prepare for another meeting anyway, so
Okay.
I'll
All
step
right, brother
out.
man.
That's
Appreciate
perfect.
your
That's
time.
perfect.
Thank you very much. All right.
All right now.
We're about to get buck wild up in this
Yeah.
joint.
We don't want you to catch no shrapnel.
Yeah.
Well, thank
And I'm
you
gonna
for
try to
thinking
see
of
you
me, brother.
Friday. I'm gonna try to see you Friday.
Okay, thank you. God bless.
All right,
Yep.
man. You too, man. Be well.
This is a you know what? Before we answer that question, I want to read you guys something just real quick. Because that's a perfect segue into what the brother just asked. But I'm going to read you guys something, man. And what I do with it? Okay, here we go. Now I'm not going to say the person's name. I'm just going to read it, and I want you guys to tell me who you think said this. And I'm going to start right here. It says, Trump's words made you think he was looking out for the America's working class. But as we know, words mean nothing. It's actions
Amen.
that matter.
Amen.
Labor, including leaders from the AFL, AFT, the Steelworkers, and SEIU, all spoke out against these enemies of labor immediately. As for our general president, he was once again missing in action. He continues to be silent and give Trump and anti-labor politicians a pass as they dismantle what it has taken a generation for labor to build. Make no mistake, Trump is our enemy. We must take our partisan emotions out of it and look at the man's actions. Trump supports national right to work. His NLRB has waged war on policies protecting organizing, collective bargaining, and they have rewritten labor law in favor of employers. Like Obama, the job growth Trump brags about is in the low-wage service sector or gig economy, and his tax bill was simply a $1 trillion gift to corporations. A war is being waged on workers, and the general president is not only refusing to fight, he won't even answer the bell. Teamsters should never be divided about by what party or candidate we as individuals support. It should be about who supports us. Teamster members deserve better. I'm gonna read that again. Teamster members deserve better. I'm gonna read it one more time because he's actually perfect on this. Teamster members deserve better. We refuse to remain silent as Trump dismantled all we have fought for. Real Teamsters aren't scared to speak up and they aren't scared to fight.
Yeah.
Can you guys guess who wrote that?
Yes,
I
Crystal Bear.
actually read that earlier on. I read that earlier today. I don't remember exactly who said it now, but I read it earlier today.
Just take some guesses on who said that.
I think Crystal Bear read it.
No.
It was-
Oh, he didn't do it?
Mm-mm.
That's
Yvette? Anybody?
It was Jimmy Hoffa. Jimmy Hoffa.
Nope.
No. Sean O'Brien.
Sean O'Brien.
Yeah. Back in the first
Yeah.
term.
Back when he was running for office.
Back when he was back in 2018.
2018.
Yeah.
Now he called out Hoffa saying he wasn't there and he
That's right.
let Trump do all this stuff, right? Look at the hypocrisy.
That's right.
Just look at it.
That's right.
He wrote this. Trump has not changed.
That's
From
right.
He's actually worse.
Trump
Yeah.
has not changed since he was in the 7th grade, and that's according to him himself.
Right.
Right. But you hit upon a point. The PRO Act, one of the bedrock things about the PRO Act was the fact that it would have eliminated right to work. Right. So I don't need a blessing from a guy to organize. I actually like the struggle of organizing, right? But when you eliminate right to work, it means that people can't freeload on you, right? So now you're going to get a clearer picture. We have, the Teamsters probably would have, I would dare to say 50,000 more members if we eliminated right to work, at the very least, right? So to get a PRO Act that does not address right to work, because right to work comes out of the Taft-Hartley Act, right? The gentleman that pushed right to work was very, very clear that he wanted to segregate Black workers and white workers. He wanted to have that because the union creates equality, right? So if you go into a warehouse, a UPS warehouse, a white driver, a female driver, a Black driver, a LGBTQ driver, all make the same amount of money.
Exactly.
And they want to eliminate that, right? Oh, you want to be a feeder driver? You got to bid that job, seniority. You don't get it because you're white. You don't get it because you're Black. You don't get it because you're a woman, you see? So they want to be able to use these divisions because anything else unites the class against capital, against the boss. And that's what all of these struggles are all about, right? Elon Musk don't want to hire somebody because he's a good engineer. He wants a white engineer. Donald Trump told you he don't want a good accountant. He wants a Jewish accountant, all right? As if to say, right, but we've been here before.
Yeah.
They call it Jim Crow, they call it segregation, they call it all these things. We have had this battle before. So we're not going to wait for it to take root. We're going to dig up that weed right now. Okay? And we're not going to allow Sean O'Brien who believes whiteness is some protector. I saw him with that Mark Wayne. And you know what Mark Wayne said to him?
Yeah.
I'm the man in the relationship. That sucker couldn't say nothing.
You know what I said?
Do you think
Don't do it, Ma. Don't do
I
it.
won't. I
Don't
promise
do
I
it.
won't say it. I promise I won't say it.
you're standing beside a guy who some few months ago y'all was getting ready to go down and throw down, and this guy is going to make a comment that in this new relationship he's the man. Well, if he's the man, what that makes Sean O'Brien, because he'll claim his spot. He done claimed his spot. What that makes Sean O'Brien? Okay. So what we have seen so far is that he has allowed himself to be the what they say in 50 Shades of Grey. One was the dominant, the submissive. He is the submissive. Okay. And in this, when you go to Mar-a-Lago, nobody has gone to Mar-a-Lago to stand up. I'm pretty sure that Xi Jinping ain't been to Mar-a-Lago. And when he comes to America, he going to the White House. He ain't going to Mar-a-Lago. And if Putin come, Putin ain't going to Mar-a-Lago. Because people go to Mar-a-Lago to become the submissive. Ask McCarthy, the former Speaker of the House. Ask Johnson, the current Speaker of the House. They all go there to submit. We have to be very clear as what's going on here. And we, as Africans in America, can't afford to go through this fight one more time. We got to stop this now. Right? There's an architect that designed half of LA, a black architect, who had to learn to draw upside down so that he wouldn't offend his clients by having to sit beside him and he could be on the other side of the table and show them what they need to see on, the diagram or whatever it is. That's how great he was. Neil Armstrong wouldn't go into outer space, didn't trust IBM. He said, if that woman ain't calculating my numbers, I don't want to hear nothing from IBM. Right? Was she DEI? So we have to be very clear what this group, Elon Musk's father was a member of the Canadian Nazi Party who left Canada to go be with his compatriots in South Africa, who had an emerald mine. You know how they treated mine workers 50 years ago? They still catching hell today. But you know what that was like 50, 60 years ago? So people have to be very clear who these players are. Jeff Bezos, did you cut a deal when you talked to Trump to say, yo, man, go tell your boy Bezos to sign a UPS-style agreement for the Amazon workers and stop fighting me? You got nothing because you're the submissive.
And also, too, Chris, I would just say this, because I see a lot of, even in our comments today on Facebook, especially on this topic, there's a lot of people who feel a certain way about the general president, and I get it, right? All the stuff that's been going on, especially after this right to work stuff, I can't articulate it how I feel about it, because you wouldn't expect a labor leader to play around with right to work. Is you know what, right to work is wrong, no matter if it's on the state level, federal level, on any level, it's wrong.
That's right.
Just like I said earlier, Dr. King didn't say Jim Crow was okay in the South.
That's right.
It's Jim Crow is bad everywhere.
Everywhere.
You don't want any type of Jim Crow system anywhere in this country.
That's right.
But what I would ask people to do, because I get it, I understand how people are feeling, especially with our general president. After you done went on Facebook, because Facebook don't vote, after you done called them all kind of names, after you've done all that, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? Because like when you go back to your barns, wherever you come from, what are you going to do? Because again, Facebook doesn't vote. The people who like your comment, those votes, those likes don't vote, right? So we have to make sure that we are talking about this in a manner that we keep focus on. This is a class struggle. Not focus so much on the general president. I get it. He has his place. But we have to focus on how we intend to, promote and defend the working class.
That's
We
right.
already know his position. They ain't no used to beating around the bush about it. What are we going to do now? Right? Where are we at right now with the rest of the labor movement? Are we the laughing stock? Are we still a powerhouse? Or what is going on? How does the rest of the working class view our organization? This is not about contracts. This ain't about UPS. This ain't about a pension. This is about Elon Musk. Donald Trump has waged war on all of labor. Where do the Teamsters fall? Which side are we on?
That's right.
And the more we focus on the general president, I'm telling you what's going to happen. He's going to have his blind loyalists. They're going to come out. They're going to talk. They're going to do this. They're going to do that. And we're focusing on what they're doing instead of focusing on fighting against the folks, the Musk, the Bezos, the oligarchs. Those folks are still our enemy. And we have to make sure that we stay focused on that. I get it. Man, Chris, everybody, man, I've seen so many people call him all kind of traitors. I mean, they calling him all kind. I mean, it's everywhere. Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. I mean, my man is getting destroyed everywhere. But what are we going to do
What
in order to
happens
change the
next?
condition?
That's right. So what I can tell you right now is that he is already and has been preparing for his reelection.
Mhm.
And he is in fact shuffling the deck so that those people who come from locals that are Trump supporting locals, the construction guys and so forth, those are going to be the people that become a part of the next slate. And he has quite a few African leaders who are on the payroll, getting some kind of stipend or check of some sorts. So they junkies to the stipend movement. It gets them every time, right? So they're not going to speak up. They're not going to speak out, right? They're going to enjoy that money. So the movement to protect the interests of the working class has to come from the rank and file.
Yeah.
The rank and file is going to have to say, hell no, right? Because I said this way before. If you did 3 polls and 2 out of the 3 polls said we support Trump, then you should have endorsed him. Because that's what you claim the members wanted, right? We were going to be guided, transparency. We were going to be guided by the will of the members. And the will of the members said, we want Donald Trump. And you still didn't endorse because they did not want you to endorse. They wanted you to be the confusing figure in the middle of labor, creating divisions and havoc. And so the rank and file is going to have to step up. The rank and file is going to have to say no. Because the price of eggs, you ain't crying no more? The price of eggs is up 30, 40%.
Yeah.
I had a woman in the supermarket say, wait a minute, is that $500 for a dozen, for the dozen eggs? Everything is going up. Bird flu is going rampant. The CDC can't even talk about it. Bird flu has jumped to cows. Bird flu has jumped to humans at the same time as you wiping out the people that at USDA who got to inspect the meat to make sure you eating good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So there's going to be another pandemic. Trust that. That pandemic is coming over the horizon as we speak. right? Because in some short space, bird flu went from birds to cows to humans. It has already infected humans, right? When you're not going to USAID, when you're not going to deal with Ebola, in 8 hours, Ebola can fly from Africa to the United States. Measles is on the rise. Measles is probably, no, it's not probably, excuse me. Measles is more contagious than COVID. If you have COVID and you're in a room of 10 people, 4 will get COVID. If you have measles and you're in a room of 10 people,
Everybody getting it.
9 is going to get COVID, right? It is highly contagious and it's on the rise. And what happens as these things morph? They have a term for it where they change their characteristics, evolve, right? Into a stronger strain in which you don't have a prescription to cure that, right? So we're going to walk down. Let me tell you something. What's going to happen in the next few years is going to be catastrophic. You ain't going to be able to call yourself Republican for the next 30 years because even the biggest idiot is going to go, wow, I did not expect that. Wait till the next storm and you don't have no FEMA people to do nothing, right? When everybody's at the border worrying about some guy who had to walk 2,000 miles and there's a hurricane coming up and bashing into South Carolina, one of these places, and you can't respond, you could say it's DEI again. But at some point, even that gets played out. Yeah. You could say woke again, and even that gets played
out. Yeah.
Because it's getting played out now. Right? But we need to have this. And Brother Clarence, I'm going to extend another invitation to you without discussing this with my brother Hooker, but I think he would agree, because I think we need to expand the conversation to connect that history with the things that's happening today. Because I think it's very important that people understand that they want to wipe out. What did Black Studies programs do? Right? How did that help? Right? How did that make us more knowledgeable? Right? And why do you want to hide it? Oh, you don't want anybody to find out that you wiped out 4 or 5 million Native Americans? Oops, sorry. Oh, you don't want to find out that slavery really wasn't a very nice thing? Oops, sorry. Oh, you don't want to talk about Jim Crow, the fact that you didn't want me in your school, the fact that you thought separate but unequal was okay? So you have to go to India to get a guy to work on your computer? So what happened to my white son that I just sent to university to learn computers because you said that's the future? But when he graduates in computer technology, you're telling me you don't want him, you want to go to India. You're telling me that a guy from India is smarter than me? A white man? Are you kidding? Is that what you're telling me? Because that's what you're saying. Oh, you don't want to pay the 100,000. You want the new indentured servant that you get from India under the H-1B visa. Because when that person comes here, if that H-1B visa person comes to work for Google and stops in a coffee shop and meet a guy from Apple, and the guy from Apple says, yo, I'll pay you twice as much, you can't leave Google because Google owns your H-1B visa. And when you stop working for Google, you're out of the country. So it's the new indentured servitude, and we need to call it what it is. Because they're white kids that can't forget the black ones, but they've always been on the bottom. Forget them. You know what I'm saying? They're accustomed to sleeping on hard ground. These white kids can't get these jobs because of the H-1B visa. And that's what Bannon is crying about. See, so there's a split between Bannon the populist racists versus Bezos and Musk, the oligarch racists. Because Bannon is against the H-1B visa. Because he knows how that's affecting white workers. But Musk wants slaves. Oh, no, sorry, they're indentured servants. I forgot. Let me call them by the right thing. That's what's going on. So we need a movement that's going to expose this and have them see this dichotomy between the Bannon camp and the Musk camp. People need to be very clear and understand these dynamics.
I'm gonna open it up for the last couple of minutes. We got 15 minutes before we get out of here. We haven't heard from a few people. We got Big Dog and Michael Thompson and Sister Shaw. If you guys want to say some things before we get out of here.
I got a question.
Go ahead,
Um,
brother.
why are the Democrats up there in Washington just sitting there and like they're just gonna sit there and wait and see what's gonna happen? You know, that's what it seems like. They were just gonna sit back, let Trump do everything, destroy everything, jack it up so bad where it'd take 20 years to fix what he did. What's going on with them? They should be out here screaming and hollering just like we should be.
I'm with you. I don't think they can do anything because if they could, they would. Or they're too afraid to do anything, one or the other.
Every one of them should go back to their sister states and start and get with all the labor leaders and start saying we all going to be in the streets. Every state should be out there with the labor and in the streets raising hell. Look at some of these white people they have in their little townhome things now, and they
Yeah, seen
pissed.
that.
They pissed.
Yeah, they
They
are.
like they like, what are you doing? Don't even come here and talk to us. You need to be back there trying to reel that madness in. You know that.
So ask yourself this question, right?
Mm-hmm.
The way the system seems to be set up, certainly in the House in particular, if you're in the minority, you have minimal power. Right? Your power is diminished, right? Why are you not coming out with a bill to increase the minimum wage from $7.25 to some more reasonable number? I'm in the minority, right? I have to tell the working class, yo, I'm still down with you, right? So why, instead of being on a book tour, oh man, you writing a book, you know what I'm saying? But now ain't the time for the book tour.
Yeah, right.
You know what I'm saying? If your team, can you imagine if Jalen Hurts decided to go on a book tour the week before the Super Bowl? They would, what?
Yeah, Philly would have went crazy. Yeah,
They would have went crazy, right?
Yeah.
So now ain't the time for the book tour. Matter of fact, hold on to this book till next year.
Mm-hmm.
You understand the point I'm saying? Why is the Democrat not sponsoring a bill that says the minimum wage should be X and then index the minimum wage to inflation so that the minimum wage remains relevant into perpetuity, right? I meant to ask the brother about this thing called the sequester. I think we need to have this discussion about the sequester. They just gave the Department of Defense $100 billion. But that money is going to the military-industrial complex. It's not going to soldiers. It's not going to those AFGE workers that's working at DOD. You understand the point? That's why so people have to be clear and start to understand the difference between this money and this money. All that you see going on right now is designed to pay for the next tax cut that they intend to come with, which is supposed to be worth 4-point-something trillion dollars. Taxes is a way of distributing the wealth. So they're now taking this money and moving it up to the elite ruling class. The working class will have to pay for this for 100 years. God forbid that the dollar is no longer the global currency, and now you really owe this money and can't print your way out of it, we will be screwed for 1,000 years.
Mm.
Let me tell you two things that has happened that people are not thinking about. And people disconnect the news because the way they give you the news, they don't reconnect it to you. So they told you something over here 6 months ago and then something over here. A few years ago, there was this race to 5G. And the word was the first to 5G rules the next 100 years. China says to the US, yo, let's work on this together and, come up with something. America goes, nah, we got this. We got enough Chinese over here working, enough Indians. We got this. China was the first to 5G. Okay? They had to call their so-called allies, who might not be allies anymore, to say, don't buy this stuff. Right? They just came out with this AI that America has spent and just gave a group of them $500 billion. China just handed them the same thing for 5.9 million. Okay?
Right.
So China is actually in the technological world now ahead. The Pentagon has run 20 different war game scenarios in which they fought China. They have yet to win. That's their own scenario. This ain't the war itself. This is their scenario, and they lost. Right? In their own games, they lost. Right? Now, I don't know if there's a point where Tiger Woods played himself and lost, but so people have to understand that when you have to run around and, oh, I'm the greatest, I'm the richest nation in the world. USAID, that money is going to American farmers. Buy wheat, that wheat now is going to rot on a vine someplace because you're not buying it, because you're not helping this guy. But you know who going to help them? China. China going to come and says, yo, you hungry? I got you. Where your loyalty is? My loyalty is to my stomach.
Mm.
Where's yours when you hungry?
That's right. You're right about it.
Right? Who you think going to rebuild Gaza? Watch and see what's happening here. Because when they make this break with Europe, what happens if Germany says, yo, I think I want to join BRICS? What happens when the EU says, hey, BRICS ain't a bad idea? Who is America's friend? Because you're going to go check Iran? Iran don't want to talk to you. So we have to be careful about this idea of isolation, because once you become the Don, yo, I run this neighborhood, once you lose a block, this is just street stuff, but it works in the global world, right? Once you lose a block, you're going to lose 2 blocks unless you do something real serious, real fast, right? So we lost in Korea, Vietnam, Afghanistan, Iraq. Libya is a hot mess. America has not won a war since 1945. My friend says, well, we won in Grenada and Panama. I said, well, that really wasn't a war, but that's like Mike Tyson bragging that he beat up Chris. You know what I'm saying? Jackie Spears could beat up Chris. Something like a big deal. So we have to be very, as the working class, we have to be real mindful, particularly as Africans in the working class, what these global dynamics and how they interplay with what's happening here in the great Washington, D.C., we have to be very mindful. So when people are jumping around and talking crazy, they need to be real careful, right? Hyundai is building an EV plant in Savannah. Volvo is building a plant. So they're not shipping no car for no tariff. They're building it right here. But the profit goes over there, right? So even GM can't keep up. Ford can't keep up, right? So if you understand what these dynamics are, and they're not building car places in Detroit, they're building them in right-to-work states because they understand the ability to exploit
the worker.
And then we have politicians that are telling them, if you do not put up a fight when the union comes, you're not getting any federal, any monetary subsidies from the state or what have you like that. They're telling them this. So even the government is exhibiting this anti-worker attitude, and you think you want to play footsie with Josh Hawley to get some watered down PRO Act that is useless? Remember, you remember the George Floyd bill that Tim Scott and them was working on? They watered that thing down to the point where even Tim Scott goes, Jesus, this is useless. Even he didn't like it no more, right? So you can have these words, but do you have the power, right? So I could give you a PRO Act with no power, with no bite, no teeth. Right? So when we go into this battle, what are we fighting for? When we have a general president that believes that any one state should be a right-to-work state, right? Because he's not doing no studying. They make him fancy speech. He could talk. I'm gonna give him credit. That's a talking rascal right there, and he sounds. But if you listen to him on Fox News, it's one of the same rhythm right there, right? Because he is contradicting something I ain't contradicted nothing I said in 2018, because I'm very careful about what I say, right? And if you're a trade unionist and your member is a Trumpster, it is your role to educate that member as to why being a Trumpster is not good for you and your union, right? People say, well, in New York, we have this congestion pricing. Chris, you down with congestion pricing? I said, yes. They said, why? I said, because my members eat from the MTA. That's who feeds them. So why would I be against any money that was coming into the MTA? That's where we eat at.
That's right.
You understand? Now, Trump is threatening them to kill. Now, are you gonna replace this money? Or do the subways just fall apart? So what kind of country you have? The 10 fastest trains in the world, none of them are here. China got trains running at 200 miles an hour. We think going 80 is fast. That's a country that's been left behind. We've had 4 plane crashes in a week or 2.
Yeah.
Who is that? DEI? I don't know nobody black flying no plane. And the 3 black pilots that we have are the best. Right? So we have to be very conscious of language when we hear it. Right? What does it translate to? You understand the point I'm saying? So if we waiting on MSNBC, listen, I've been waiting for this guy, what her name, Rachel Maddow, been having Trump locked up 8 years ago. I'm still waiting. He ain't got no handcuffs yet. I can't watch none of this no more, right? And I'm telling people, get your subscription to Reuters, get your subscription to the Associated Press, get your subscription to Truth Out, get your subscription to La Lucha, Get you a subscription to some alternative news, because I've told people this: the Democratic Party and the Republican Party are going in the same direction. One just moving faster than the other. But both of them are supported by oligarchs. And all the oligarchs can agree, we're going to remain oligarchs. Each one of them have billionaires that support it.
Yep.
Right? And all billionaires have a common cause. Right? Just
dominate the working class.
the working class.
Yep.
There's no other way.
Listen, we got to go, man. We've been
all right,
up here
man.
for 2.5 hours.
Oh, yeah,
I know
we've been at a long time.
Yeah, I know we could continue to talk about this, but next month, let's come up with a date while we all here.
Yeah, yep.
How does March 16th work for everybody?
Yeah, 4 o'clock, March 16th. I think we
Sounds-
did that last month. I got it in here already.
We did? Probably did.
Yeah,
Okay.
March 16th it is.
Sounds good. Hey, thanks everybody for coming on, man. I appreciate it, Brother Clarence. Thank
Brother
you.
Clarence, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Sister Jackie, Yvette,
Everybody did.
Sister Demetra, Big Dog, Jacqueline Towns, Sister Green is gone. And Leyland, thank you for being here with us this evening.
Yep. Thank you guys so much. Appreciate it. Y'all be good, be safe.
Right, stay strong.
Hey, well-
Again, everybody out there, man. I know we upset with the GP, but after you get mad and upset, what's the message after that? What we gonna do when we get
Right
back
next. That's it.
to our barns, right? Because Facebook don't vote, likes don't vote, hearts, all the other emojis, they don't vote, and I get it. I understand. I'm still praying for the brother, right? But that right to work one it was a gut punch, man. I ain't gonna lie. That was rough. That was rough to deal with, man.
Listen, man. When you done drank the Kool-Aid or fell under the spell, it's hard to escape.
Right.
And it's very difficult for me to believe that this is happening just so.
Yeah.
I've always felt there's more to this. And there's a reason why when these people capitulate, they can't seem to come back. Right? And that when you look at what happened with him and Mark Wayne and look at that incident in the Senate, and then look at the two, I could never share a stage with Mark Wayne in life, right? And if I was forced to, the moment he said that he's the man, I would have had to have a comment that contradicted that thought process. We'd have been fighting right there, right? But he took it. He took it. He did not push back.
I haven't said it about it, but I'm gonna be honest. I felt so embarrassed, man.
Oh man, let me tell you something.
It was like, no, this can't be happening. It was embarrassing, man. I just could not believe.
You should have heard him in Florida. You should have heard him in
Well,
Florida.
real quick before we go, tell everybody about that.
I'm gonna save it till March. I'm gonna
Okay.
save it till March because there's a lot to delve into.
Got you.
With him, and even the response of other supposed trade unionists that exhibited the kind of anti-immigrant, anti-poor, blaming poor people and what have you like that. I'm actually going to prepare myself to go to the next joint council meeting to address what I heard there, but he is a Fox talking point on the loose. That's why I brought up that whole thing with the condoms, right? Which was not true. But as Musk says, you're gonna hear a lot of untruths. You just you won't know which is which.
Right.
Just make them all acceptable to you.
Hey, I got a question.
Yes, sir.
How many immigrants are out there taking jobs? Look like Trump is taking all the jobs, telling, well, I should say Musk is sending letters out telling people you fired. I don't see no immigrants sending out no letters to nobody telling them they fired.
No.
Yeah, that was another one that he said. and listen, we are not at war with any worker, no matter where they are.
That's right.
Immigrant, non-immigrant, if you're a worker, you are our brother and sister, no matter where you're at in the world. Right. And for him to say that, I was like, man, what is happening to this guy? That's why I pray for him so much, man.
So I'm going to remind these guys of the Joint Council meeting, because they're predominantly Irish, predominantly Italian, that when the Italians were coming in waves to the shores, we had a president called Teddy Roosevelt. And Teddy Roosevelt said, the worst of Europe is coming to America. In 1960, in England, there were signs up in 1960 in England, no Irish, no black need apply for anything here. In America, they were indentured servants, okay? They used to band with blacks. The reason why they had to pass a law that says y'all can't marry and intermarry was because of the relationship that was going on between the Irish of the time and blacks of that time. You understand what I'm saying? They became white. They were raised up. Let me tell you something. I'm going to tell you how bad it is. They have a thing called a paddy wagon. They don't have a wagon. They don't have an N-word wagon, but they have the paddy wagon. Now think of where we are in America. And we never, much as they lock us up, mass incarceration and what have you, we never had a wagon. But they had a paddy wagon. Okay? They lynched 13 Italians, really Sicilians, in New Orleans. Okay? So when they think they're immune, once you start regressing, the dominoes fall on everybody that was in line. So I'm going to this meeting to remind them of their history here in America, to wake them up, because sometimes they think they have escaped. It's only temporary.
All right, well, we're gonna end it on that, man.
Brother Chris, don't forget to show them the boats that they came off of.
They will be getting an education, I guarantee you that. Y'all have a good evening.
All right, y'all be good, be safe.
All right, now.
All right,
night.
everybody, take care.